What is going on, everybody? So in this video, I'm going to do a versus illustration of Tekken 8. So Yoshimitsu versus Bryan Fury. Let's get it started. So when it came down to this illustration, Yoshimitsu took the longest to make. Now, the thing about it is, of course, it's a huge upgrade from how he looked in Tekken 7. However, at the same time, me personally, I didn't know how detailed it was until I actually started looking at the reference and, creating this artwork at the same time. So much work was onto the dome that literally it took me hours on just working on the sketch of Yoshimitsu just to make sure everything was good. Now, when it came down to Bryan, it wasn't as difficult just because he just got the generic muscular silver hair with scars type of guy. So that one was a lot easier. But Yoshimitsu, since that's the focal point, that one just took me a long time just going back and forth with the reference. Also, at the same time, the sword of Yoshimitsu, of course, his sword katana is way longer, but just for the sake of the vertical aspect ratio, I decided to shorten it rather than have it a full bleed where it crops, or should I say, it just jets out of the canvas. So I wanted to crop it so it could be more condensed so everything could just form in its place. Now, the whole composition and flow, I'm playing off of the vertical aspect ratio. I didn't want to do the typical two profile views, like button heads looking at each other. I wanted to give it that whimsical composition by having Bryan at the top and Yoshimitsu at the bottom. Also adding graphical elements as well. So when it comes down to just the sketch, I want to create that flow with the shapes, with the diamond type of shapes moving around. Think of it like a road sign, or should I say the road pavements on the floors, just to give it that streak as if it's in motion. But like I said before, I will say it again, Yoshimitsu literally took about, I'll say like 2.5 hours just on the sketch of him alone. And Bryan didn't take as long, but Yoshimitsu was the big chunk of it. Once the sketch was complete, this is when I transferred the file from Adobe Photoshop to Adobe Illustrator.
Chill. Ho.
Yeah! He said ho! Alright. On next to the stage, part human, part machine, Bryan Fury. Huh? I don't get the joke part. Oh, please don't end our life, please. Even with Adobe Illustrator, I still had to go into the detail, not just tracing over the sketch, but also applying the lights and shadows onto the structure as well. And my God, Yoshimitsu, again, with so much detail, it took a long time just to pretty much to complete the pen tool. I was on the pen tool for a couple of hours on Yoshimitsu as well as Bryan Fury. Another thing I had to bear in mind was the structure. So looking at Yoshimitsu's reference, there was a few points in the design itself where there was so many different types of intricate shapes that I had to do my own interpretation from what I was looking at, applying that onto the illustration itself. Once that was complete, you already know, colors! You gotta love the colors! Colors, you gotta love colors. So the coloring aspect of it was tricky with Yoshimitsu because it has like a bit of a turquoise / blue tone with the Tekken 8 render that I wasn't able to replicate. But I got close. As long as I get my interpretation of it, that's all that matters to me the most, rather than trying to make a replica. But I did my best just looking at it and trying to eyeball the color of the render. But the colors itself is very interesting because it has the blue that's cold, and then it has the warmth orange, so it has the complementary colors between blue and orange. So I think that was pretty cool, as well as the lava type of aesthetic. I wasn't able to capture the lava aesthetic, but I did my best when it comes down to my best with the colors with the blue and orange. There was lots of arranging, center to front, center to back, just because he got the sword, then you got his armor, then you got the light coming from his mouth. So I added a Gaussian blur on his mouth as well as his eyes, and then later on when it came down to his sword. Now when it came down to coloring Bryan, it wasn't too bad with Bryan, just because again he was just more simplistic. And of course I always start off with the most difficult part first and then work my way to the easiest parts of the illustration. So Bryan wasn't too bad. It's just I had to just keep going back and forth of making sure I got the reference correct as far as looking at the reference, and then making sure that I'm eyeballing the right skin tone, and then the right in terms of his scar, and then all of the exaggeration. That's the thing about Bryan, is like it's pretty, I'm used to making like characters like this, so the more exaggerated the better. So I've exaggerated on his like scowls, on his eyebrows, or should I not his eyebrows, but more like the wrinkles of him looking crazy, and then the type of face expression. So I really like making characters where they all cooped up and crazy. So that honestly wasn't as difficult to capture. Now of course when it comes down to his armband, I did my best to eyeball it as far as like getting the color right. So, and then I didn't want to just add like a pattern texture. I just threw a few like you know, with the pen tool, just eyeballing it with the little squares on his pretty much the design that's on it. I could have used a pattern, but I just did it by hand. And then a few things too, like with the, I guess the rocket or the weapon that's behind him, that right there was quite difficult, just because I realized my perspective was a little bit off. But you know, I'm not trying to make it look perfect, but I noticed that a few things was off there that I had to fix. And again, like the whole composition, I'm all about making composition strong. So I wanted to give it that dynamic pose while the characters are in, you know, the characters are in motion. So this is pretty much the complete illustration of Bryan Fury and Yoshimitsu. All right, so this is it right here, Bryan versus Yoshimitsu. Now this been going on since what, Tekken 3, especially the one in Tekken 5. But what do you guys think in the comment section below? Also, throw some suggestions down below, any other verses in Tekken. I don't know, King, Murdoch, or Raven and Dragunov, or the new French guy and Dragunov. You know, the sky's the limit. Throw your suggestions down below. And I also want to say that this took me a long time to make. I did the calculations through, because I recorded everything, and this took in total 8 hours and 36 minutes. Yeah, that's like a whole working shift. But to put it into making it into a full-blown illustration. So this took me 3 days, but in total 8 hours and 36 minutes to make. So they take some time. And I also made a logo version, like I always do, with the art logo with it. So here is that, you know, as the brand extension with all of them. And then of course I'll have it here where they are side by side like this right here. So that's that. So yeah, this was definitely a challenge, especially if you you heard me complain so much about Yoshimitsu. My goodness, that was extremely tough. Just the intricacies, and this is why I love making this, because you really appreciate the amount of work these artists create. In, you know, Namco, I guess it's, I don't know what the company's called now, Bandai Namco, right? So they put in a lot of work, and that's the best way for you to appreciate it as another artist, from artist to artist, is by drawing it. and you see it more than the average person, right? So yeah, that's that. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I can't wait to make more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.